When we played our charade, we were like children posing.
Okay, we're back in session. It's a good announcement. First, we have a presentation this evening, a presentation of the rail bed realignment update. And at this time, I'd like to recognize the City Manager, Mr. Sterling Cheatham. Mr. Cheatham.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, Mr. Aubrey Parsley, Rail Realignment Director, will present this item.
Good evening, Mayor, members of Council. On June 10th, AECom received a notice to proceed from the city to perform the work under the Professional Services Agreement. That's the environmental documentation and engineering design work that's funded under our FRA grant agreement with reimbursement support from NCDOT. And that officially puts us underway with this phase of the project, which is very, very exciting. And as such, I would like to establish a regular cadence to be able to update everybody on the progress of the work that we're doing in this part of the project. So for tonight, to start things off, I'd like to touch on just two topics. We'll be going over at a high level the project schedule and what our workload holds for the next 2 or 3 years. And I'll also be, Soraya, will be presenting a couple of slides on public engagement and public outreach, which have been a mainstay for this project since the very beginning, and it'll certainly be something that will continue through this phase of the work. So with that, please let me introduce Soraya Motzinger with AECom. Soraya will be part of the leadership team for AECom to help carry this work forward. She'll be our project coordinator. And with that, I'll let her take over, and I'll circle back should there be any questions at the end from council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parsley. And on behalf of the AECom team, thank you to the City of Wilmington for this opportunity to assist you with this really important project, which we know will shape the future development of this community. We're really excited to dig into this project, and AECom has really been monitoring the project from its conception, and we have worked hard to put together a team of national experts from across AECom, our partner with WSP, and several other local firms as well, to make sure we can develop and meet the technical needs of the project's development. Of course, you know that Mr. Parsley has been hard at work on this project since his first day on the job, but now with the AECom team behind him, we can really help him dig in to deliver project success. And this slide snapshot presents the contract schedule for AECom, and you can see our contract is divided into 4 tasks to be delivered over the course of 3 years. And we're in the process of delivering task 1, the project work plan, by deadline of June 30th. And we have also started the development of tasks 2 and 3, the environmental review and conceptual engineering. Task 4 is the development of the preliminary engineering necessary for this project, and you'll see that it begins in earnest only after the completion of the environmental review documents. You'll notice that there are some hash marks at the end of the conceptual engineering and until the end of the environmental review documents, and that is to signify that our engineers won't just be sitting and waiting. They'll be continuously coordinating with the environmental team to ensure the project is updated with data until the development or the acceptance of the environmental review documents. And we've heard both from the community and from the Director of Rail Realignment that this project will only be considered a success if it's really rooted in a coalition of support from stakeholders and community members. And because of that, we are intending to deliver as an early milestone the development of a public involvement plan document to outline how we intend to engage the public and resource agencies in the development of this project. And this document will be defined by addressing three main objectives. The first is we'll make sure all our engagement initiatives are regular, consistent, and inclusive to all the public and stakeholders. And we'll also ensure that our engagement initiatives will be defined by being multi-pronged. And by this, we mean that we know that all stakeholders aren't the same. They don't have the same needs, and they won't be engaged the same way. So we'll look to develop multiple different engagement techniques to address the needs of different stakeholders and make sure that this can really be an inclusive process. Finally, we'll ensure that the entire project is defined by continuous stakeholder engagement. And then to highlight specifically, we haven't completed our public engagement plan to date, but we know that we have some really important milestones where we're going to want to engage the public. The first is upcoming in July, where we'd like to present some initial basic project data and really kick the door open to allow the public and resource agencies to coordinate with us on the development of the project. And then the second I wanted to point out is in November. At this point, we'll have developed enough information on screening criteria that will reach out to the public and resource agencies and seek feedback to make sure we're helping to define the project's development correctly. Of course, we'll have continuous engagement throughout the project's development with updates to the website, newsletters, and continuous opportunities for stakeholder meetings. And with that, that really concludes what we wanted to relay today, and we'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Soraya. Any questions from council?
Are there any questions?
Moving along. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to our next item of business, which is item PH1, which is an ordinance amending the official zoning maps of the city to rezone property located at 6855 Market Street and 6804 Gordon Road from R15 Residential District to RB Regional Business District. And before we get started, I would like to ask for this council to recuse me from this vote. I do have a family member that has an interest in this property, and I must recuse myself from this vote.
So moved.
Is there a second? Councilmember Rivenbark made the motion and Councilmember Barnett seconded. You are now consider yourself recused. Oh, I guess we need to vote on it. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Me and Cliff said it was okay.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. The mayor read the ordinance, and so I'll now turn this over to the city manager, Mr. Cheatham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Pat O'Mahony, Associate Planner, will overview this item.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of council. The proposal tonight includes 3 parcels containing approximately 1.89 acres. The site is located near the intersection of Market Street and Gordon Road and was annexed effective January 31st, 1999. The site currently contains 2 single-family dwellings. This map provides context and highlights the site's location. This slide provides the existing conditions located on site. The 2 images are looking west towards the subject properties from Market Street. These images are of the adjacent land uses. The properties are surrounded by vacant property directly east and north of the site. There are adjacent commercial uses shown to the south and northeast, shown in the images on the bottom of the screen. The site is currently zoned R15 residential and is surrounded by nearby commercial uses to the north, south, and east, with RB regional business zoning completely surrounding the parcel. An existing single-family home remains to the west of the subject parcels. The comprehensive plan identifies the site as within a high-density transition area of opportunity and mixed-use place on the plan's growth strategies map. The comprehensive plan calls for development and redevelopment that is compatible with the surrounding area and also supports development and redevelopment in areas that are already served by adequate public infrastructure. The proposed rezoning to RB regional business would apply an appropriate zoning classification that's consistent with the surrounding properties and allow for commercial development that is compatible with the surrounding area. Staff believes the proposed zoning amendment is consistent with the recommendations of the Create Wilmington Comprehensive Plan and the focus areas of the city's strategic plan. Staff believes the request is reasonable and in the public interest and recommends approval of the request. Planning Commission also unanimously recommended approval of this request. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. The applicant is here as well.
Are there any questions for staff? Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll recognize the applicant.
Thank you. Good evening. My name's Cindy Wolf, and I'm speaking on behalf of the owner of the properties. This is, for the most part, I think, sort of a housekeeping. It's an island of residential that was preserved, I believe, just pretty much because there was a house on it during the annexation. And we'd like to make it consistent with everything around it. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I think staff did a great job with their case summary. Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant? Thank you, Ms. Wolf. At this point, we are going to have a public hearing, and I will open the public hearing in a moment, but I'd like to make it clear that anyone that would like to speak either in support or in opposition to this, that we will address this particular item, that this is not a public information, and we will stick to the subject matter this evening. And at that point, I will open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone that would like to speak either for, in support of, or in opposition to this ordinance.
Mayor Pro Tem, I have checked in all of the public rooms and asked for any input, and there's no one here to speak either for or against on this item.
All right, thank you. Now, I think I need to ask the clerk if we have received any written comments.
No, ma'am, we have not.
So we've received no comments, and there's no one here present. So at this point, I will ask for the pleasure of the council.
I move to approve the project.
Second.
Mr. Barnett has made the motion, and Mr. Rivenbark has provided the second. I do need to call the roll and ask how people. I'm sorry.
Read the consistency.
Oh, I'm sorry. You have to read the consistency statement. I'm out of practice here.
I move to approve the proposed amendment to rezone property located at 6,855 Market Street and 6804 Gordon Road from R15 Residential District to RB Regional Business District, and finding to be consistent with the relevant policies in the comprehensive plan. Based on the application materials and the information provided at the public hearing, then the staff report and the final approval of the rezoning request is reasonable and in the public interest for the following reasons. The proposed zoning would apply an appropriate zoning classification that is consistent with surrounding properties and allow for commercial development that is compatible with the surrounding areas.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Barnett. I will poll the members of council. Or do I have to do that since we're all here? Or?
No, ma'am, you do not.
Okay, all of those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously.
And Madam Mayor Pro Tem, because this is not a remote meeting, if council is so minded, you may go ahead and see if council would like to waive second.
You just told me that. Is there a motion to waive second reading? Mr. Anderson has made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Rivenbark has provided that second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, that also passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Next item of business is our ordinances. Item 01 is an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city to rezone property containing 3.53 acres of land located at 1445 Eastwood Road from CBCD Community Business Conditional District to CBCD Community Business Conditional District for 4,375 square feet of automotive service car wash. And this is going to be heard on a second reading.
I move the ordinance.
Okay. We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Rivenbark, seconded by Councilmember Barnett. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item passes unanimously. That brings us to our next item of business, which is item 02, which is an ordinance authorizing supplemental appropriation of CDBG CV funds. And this is also being heard on a second reading. What are the wishes of council in respect to the item 02? We have a motion made by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Councilmember Barnett. Any discussion? All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously. Brings us to our next item, which is item 03A, which is an ordinance authorizing street closures and service of alcohol for emergency and temporary downtown outdoor dining stage 1 COVID-19 economic recovery program. At this time, I'd like to recognize our city manager, Ms. Sterling Cheatham. I also will note that we do have an accompanying item, which is item 03B, which is the ordinance making the supplemental appropriation in the amount of $13,000 from the fund balance of the Municipal Service District Fund and shifting general fund accounts, funding $81,500 to carry out emergency and temporary downtown outdoor dining stage 1 COVID-19 economic recovery program. City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Tom Moten, Deputy Manager, will overview this item.
Okay, Mr. Moten, welcome. Thank you.
And we do have a modified ordinance for your consideration.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so you should have, Mr. Cheatham is passing out the amended ordinance that was emailed to members of council last evening. And I'll just wait a minute while that occurs. As you know, this will be the third report or presentation that council has received on the outdoor dining economic recovery program. And we've emphasized throughout this process how we needed to be fluid, agile, and be willing to be flexible and make adjustments as events evolve. And sure enough, over the weekend, there were changes in the participants, as well as some additions to restaurants participating. And in the course of considering it, we recognized that one element that was intended to be in the ordinance was to seek your permission to grant the managers some flexibility to make adjustments as needed. Otherwise, each and every change throughout the process, particularly as it relates to maybe some additions, will require the matter to come before council, and the time being of essence, and another meeting not until July 21st, we felt that we would lose valuable time and miss the opportunity to try to meet those needs as we encounter them. So that's the thrust of the amended ordinance. The title of it is Ordinance Authorizing the City Manager to Temporarily Close Certain Streets and Allow the Extension of Merchant Space and the Service and Distribution of Alcohol in the Public Right-of-Way and City-Owned Streets as part of Stage 1 COVID-19 Economic Recovery Program, or what has been billed as Downtown Alive. The presentation, this would be the second iteration of what you saw on June 15th. It's abbreviated, recognizing that you're probably very familiar with this information. But I would want to stop and just acknowledge the very capable professional men and women who've worked on this endeavor. There've been nearly up to 30 different people, every department in the city. We've had support and help from the Chamber of Commerce, particularly the Downtown Business Alliance, as well as Wilmington Development, Inc. We've had parking individuals. We've had individuals with economic development, finance, city attorney's office. If they send us a bill from the attorney's office, we'd really lose money on this deal. So it's just taking that amount of effort, including the city clerks. So on behalf of the team, I'm just a presenter. I want to thank all those individuals who helped get us to this point. If you'll advance the slide, please. So just a reminder, this is familiar terrain that you've seen. I will point out the differences again. The impetus for this was the Downtown Business Alliance heard from their members, businesses or restaurants downtown saying, we need help us do something. So the request originated that way. And then of course, with WDI having a presence downtown, the two came together to sort of sort through the issues and come up with a solution that would benefit most, but at the same time, we recognize there are going to be gaps. Not everyone can be benefited from this particular step in the process. Next slide, please. The action that we're asking you to do tonight would be to authorize the manager to authorize the closing of the street as well as the sales of alcohol in the public right-of-way and streets, as well as with give the manager the ability to approve some changes in the plan with appropriate communication. So when we think of appropriate communication, we envision one, council being advised that there's a consideration for a change, stakeholders and individuals who may be impacted by the change being engaged. And so that's what we envision with appropriate communication. Also, we're asking council tonight to consider the budget that I'll touch on here shortly. And just as a reminder, essentially this is a month and a half period of special events. It's really just a series of special events, Thursday through Sunday. That's temporary. And if you remember early on in the June 1st and 15th, the approach was, and we're so early on that we would do this until such time as the governor lifted the restrictions on indoor dining. And at the 15th meeting, I recommended live that we move away from that and just commit to maintaining the program outdoors until the Tuesday after Labor Day. And the reason for that was the window of time remaining was so insufficient that to justify the expenses and the effort to this point wouldn't make much sense if the restrictions were lifted within a week or two, quite frankly. Next slide. So just as a reminder, June, July, August, September. The September says 6 special event days, and that was also on the 15th. After consulting with the team, I recommended that we go ahead and include Labor Day, treated as a Sunday for the purposes of outdoor dining, should the restaurants want to do it. Now, we're not demanding they do it. We're simply saying if there's a desire to extend that weekend into Monday, it would essentially provide 6 special event days in September. This is a holiday, generally speaking. Next slide, please. The event hours have not changed. The intention is that the Downtown Live, the event portion on Thursdays and Fridays starts at 6:30. Streets will be closed to parking at 5:30, providing a window of 1 hour to turn over to downtown to get outdoor dining set up. That will continue to 10. All evening hours would be, night hours would be at 10 p.m. Friday, 10 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday, 10 to 5:30. Hour on the ends to reopen the streets. On the way to today's special meeting, I stopped by Isaac's Menswear, one of the individuals that called on Monday, and he is at 109 North Front Street, and he expressed a desire that he felt that as a retailer, his customers wanted parking close to his business, and he'd prefer that the streets not be closed, essentially. But he says, I support downtown. Perhaps you could delay Thursday and Friday by 30 minutes. We talked for about a good 20 minutes, and I explained to him that the original request was that the streets be closed at 4 in order to open at 5. And we're trying to find this balance that allows for diners to have at least a couple of turns at the table. And I felt that, I told him I would make council aware, but I didn't feel at this point in time that that would be a suggestion that I would bring forward for you to act on. I just wanted you to be aware. He did say that he could live with Saturday, although he felt like having the streets open be better. What was interesting, and I pointed it out to him at the time, that as I walked to his business from a parking down the street, somebody that went into his shop as I was entering was coming from a farther distance. In fact, probably outside the area that would be closed. So I think people will walk, but nonetheless, I just want you to be aware of that. And there was one other issue with private parking on Princess Street. And we've worked the arrangement with that individual, with their employees, should they work on Saturdays or Sundays after hours, that we can accommodate somehow arrangement with them with parking in the parking deck. And their concerns were regarding security, the Zimmer group. And so we've addressed that. So those are the two issues I'm aware of. Just in the spirit of full disclosure, I want to make you aware of it. Next slide, please. This is pretty much a refresher from a previous process. We have an application process that we're requiring. Site plan would be submitted. Catherine Thurston in the zoning division is preparing a master site plan for ALE that will depict all of the areas that would be included for outdoor dining and alcohol sales. We have a relationship, and we've secured a contract with a special event manager that will be responsible for the personnel that will be required to staff and to assist in the operation. Next slide, please. Pardon me. One update stricken through would be the 200 block of Princess Street. That was the change this weekend. I've received word on Sunday that one business was planning on relocating to a new location. Another business that was originally anticipated to participate, upon further inspection, they really weren't permitted to have indoor dining, and another had so limited indoor dining that it really didn't justify closing the street. So that's removed. So there's a total of 4 blocks at this point in time that will be part of the event area. I will point out to you on Princess Street at Water Street, we'll have barricades there. There won't be event space, but there's no reason to allow motorists to drive up the hill to simply be told, turn around when you get to Front Street. Next slide. So this is the event map. Now it looks like sort of it was less like a T, but again, the areas that we're looking at are really North Front Street between Chestnut to Market, and then Market to Dock, and then Princess between Front and Second. One item that I want to point out on the bottom right-hand corner, there was a question that Ed Wolverton fielded from a restaurant operator regarding their capacity in terms of seating, and the question related to how many can we have outdoors relative to indoors. And as it stands right now with the governor's executive order 141, if I'm not mistaken, it's 50% occupancy combined indoor and outdoor limit at this point in time. So hopefully with the forthcoming expected phase 3 or the next executive order, there'll be some relaxation of that, because ideally you'd like to be able to have between indoor and outdoor to get to 100% capacity.
Excuse me, Tom, we got a question.
Because indoor, they couldn't attain 50% because of social distance. The outdoor allows them to reach that 50%.
Yes, sir.
The barriers, what are they made of?
They're steel. In fact, we just had the order come in. We worked hard this weekend. RT Jones was here. He and other folks were deploying them. They're about 700 pounds each. And they're just, yes, sir, that's correct. So they're steel, are made of iron, pretty heavy. They're designed to have wheels where you can roll them back, but if you run into them, they actually dig into the pavement. So you walk them back, it just stops the vehicle. They're generally called a hostile vehicle barrier or mitigation device.
Tom, I guess that's Princess, the hill there down to water. You won't have it open for parking, taxi stands, anything.
No, I mean, mainly because there's a surface lot at the end that you can have access to it off of Water Street. But the notion of having traffic go up and down and pedestrians walking through that area, it was a recommendation from the traffic engineering division that for safety that we go ahead and close that.
Because there's no real way to turn around a car, I guess.
Right. And you can imagine sort of the frustration some motorists would have driving up that hill and being told when you get up there to see a barricade and say, turn around and go back.
Gotcha.
Particularly if there's no parking available either, and then you're even more frustrated because you've got to turn around. If we were to allow parking on the side of the roadway, you've got less space to really navigate. Next slide, please. Again, team effort. Everyone's been involved. One change at the bottom that's got the strike through and it's in yellow or amber. CW is Cool Wilmington. That's the firm that we were really struggling to find someone who could take on and commit the time and the resources for 11 weeks or 45 days to pull this off. And Chris Andrews, I think, is the principal of the firm, local entity with experience in special event management. Can't say how much we appreciate him because within less than a week, he didn't know all the details, but he said, I really want to help out. Now tell me what it is you're wanting me to do. And so that's the kind of community that we're working with right now. Everybody's putting aside any concerns they have and just forging together to make things happen. Next slide, please. Again, special event management would be Cool Wilmington. Short notice, we had a couple of concerns. Security was one element that we felt was important. We had presented to you before that we recommended that there be some security dedicated to the event area. And you had expressed concerns about perhaps a burden being placed on the police department with outdoor dining. So we felt it was important to have the security element there. We really went down to the wire trying to make sure we were able to find a firm. We were able to secure a firm that can provide security in the event area, dedicated security, if you will, along with we'll still have the ambassadors and personnel from Cool Wilmington as well. The budget?
Tom.
Yes, sir.
I thought you were I was still on. Okay. Was there anything in there regarding that it's kind of people in seats kind of thing? I mean, did we ever work that into the conversation?
We do. That's a requirement. So there's no standing. In fact, DBA also developed some what we call conduct guidelines and rules is in the packet. So you have to be seated. If you don't have a seat, you can't just be in the event area standing.
So hopefully bars will eventually be able to participate as well.
Yes. However, this does not address that at this time. But if bars were to open, we would come with a plan. Maybe the city attorney would interpret that this may enable us to address the bars. But we know
talked about that several times. So we couldn't incorporate it.
Well, yeah, just outdoor dining with restaurants and alcohol is like trying to get your arms around an elephant. But then we'd have a herd between that, the parklets, and then bars. And so we try to do the first step, which is just get the major group, the parklets, so sort of that smaller retail restaurant cafes, and then bars. And so I envision we're going to tackle that next, and then bars probably third.
I want to ask you a question about that after you finish the presentation.
Okay. So the budget's been refined. It's been tightened up a little bit. It was around $126,000. You'll see it's at 109. $28,000 of it on your right. Those are the expenses. Is for the vehicle barriers. $81,500 is for the special event management services. You'll see some examples of what those costs would be, but there's also the staff, the equipment rental, tow services, special event administration, setup, breakdown, as well as getting the special event manager, almost like a promoter, to commit to a certain finite window of work, meaning he's going to reject other work during the same period of time. So that's so that's the 109 in terms of the resources. Revenues are on the left. You'll see that MSD fund balance, $13,000. The MSD also had a budget reserve this fiscal year that would not be used, and so $15,000 from it for a total of $28,000 from MSD. City Council contingency, that would be CC Contend, $35,415 from fiscal year 20. Those funds would have lapsed and gone into fund balance. And then you can see CC Econ, City Council Economic Development Incentive, $16,092 from fiscal year 20. And then DVA had a allocation of $10,000 for this fiscal year in which they were unable to utilize. Do anticipate they will be utilizing it in FY21. So that is the extent of the revenues to come up with 109,500. Next slide.
I have a question.
Yes, sir. Huh?
For the special event manager.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. They have enough staff in place to facilitate this or not?
Yes, they do. We also have some city employees, and we're also looking for volunteers. In their budget, I believe they have 6 or 8 employees listed. The restaurants, if you envision, the restaurants essentially will have an outdoor dining room, if you will. They're responsible for that area within the outdoor dining room. Right. We need the personnel to help with the setup, the breakdown, and also be available at all of the closed locations and roving throughout the area in case something comes up. And
Right.
so that's sort of their primary role. Also communication, maybe escorts, and other matters like that.
So just looking at that, I was thinking like maybe this would be a potential for us to employ some people.
They're looking for people, and that's cool. Wilmington, he generally has a crew, but right now they're in a state of transition. But Chris Andrews, there are 6 to 8 individuals in his budget, generally, and that's year-round special event personnel. But yeah.
Right. Okay. So I mean, they're looking for somebody. So do we need to get in contact with them about advertising that, or do we need to advertise that, or what? I mean,
Right.
I think we need to incorporate this into how we communicate with the community. And as far as, this is, we've had talk about budget here lately. And so how can we try to bring people into putting people to work or, being inclusive?
Well,
just a thought.
Right. Not just trying to seem evasive, but as a contractor, we leave to them the personal employment aspect of it. However, what I will do is touch base with, or make sure we touch base with Mr. Andrews. And if there's a need that he has in terms of placement employment, I'll make sure we share that information.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Just a reminder, downtown, diverse downtown, vibrant downtown. You could almost put any accolade, excuse me, any accolade you want to when you describe our downtown, but it's a place that people want to be, and it's a healthy place. And as a result, it's hard to find harmony and agreement universally throughout any block. And so, we've said that as a staff from the beginning: be agile, be flexible. We also recognize that full street closure works for some, but it doesn't work for everyone. We wanted to commit to evaluating, assessing. We call this first week, if you were to approve it, a soft rollout. Next week would be a full rollout. And we're going to remain open to the concept of a parklet. We think that it has much merit. However, it's a little bit more intensive in terms of the planning. And there is a schism, if you will, between parklets being 4 days, just like this for street closure, or 7 days. And as part of the staff team, I have some concerns about inconveniencing businesses and residents downtown 7 days a week. I think you may want to run them concurrently, but we have not decided. Next slide. So we're at the last page. We're essentially at the bottom, which is 625 if approved. And today we're looking for council to consider the recommendation by staff, as well as the companion item 3B, approving the budget. Be happy to answer any questions council may have.
Any questions?
With this increase in what we've seen from COVID-19, is that affecting our plan or rollout or anything? Or?
Well, one of the things, we had a very good conversation about whether or not it was the role for this event to require masks. And what we've done is incorporated in the print and the media that we're going to have that would be recommended, and that also the staff serving be wearing facial coverings. Social distancing would be enhanced. We did not arrive, and I take some responsibility. I didn't feel like we were in the position to mandate it. We're seeing a variety of operators of private businesses deciding on their own what they want to do. But I think with it being outdoors, the one thing that we've read and heard is air circulating outdoors generally is far better than it would be to be indoors in terms of the risk being less, unless it's a strong windy day.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, sir.
Ready to vote? Okay. In respect to item 03A, which is the ordinance amending ordinance authorizing street closure and service of alcohol for emergency and temporary downtown outdoor dining stage 1 COVID-19 economic recovery program. How does the council vote? What is it? Which is
I move the ordinance.
We have a motion made by Councilman Rivenbark, second by Mayor Pro Tem Haynes.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, if Councilmember Rivenbark could specify it's the amended ordinance that you received tonight.
That the city manager passed out to me.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion by Mr. Rivenbark, second by Mayor Pro Tem. Any other discussion? All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading?
Motion.
Motion made by Councilmember Anderson, second by Councilmember Barnett. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first as well as second reading. That brings us to item 03B, which is the ordinance making supplemental appropriations in the amount of $13,000 from the fund balance of the Municipal Service District Fund and shifting general fund accounts and funding $81,500 to carry out emergency and temporary downtown outdoor dining stage 1 COVID-19 economic recovery program. What are the wishes of council in respect to item 03B?
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Barnett, second by Councilman Rivenbark. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading?
Second.
Motion made by Mayor Pro Tem, second by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first as well as second reading. That concludes the regular agenda. Are there any items to be brought forward by anybody?
I just wanted to say one thing. I guess Tom left. Mr. Manager, if we could have somebody in Catherine's office or Tom to put together some guidelines for bars if our governor ever sees the way to allow bars to open back up and not wait until he does it and then take a week to figure out, because they need some, God knows they need some love too.
I talked about giving the city manager some room here, some leeway. I mean, if we have a section of street that nobody's using, I would assume he'd have the power just to say we're reopening that piece.
Indeed, yes.
I'd like to remind our citizens to continue to remember that COVID is alive and that we need to wear our mask, wash our hands, and practice the 6 feet distancing. You notice that we've been doing it here, which is what we want to model. And also want to remind our citizens to fill out their census. The city loses money when you don't count everybody in your household. So please take time to do that. Then the last thing, with the protest, part of the best way to protest is to vote. So we encourage people to get their absentee ballots. We encourage people to make sure that you register to vote, because that's how we really can make a sustainable change. That's what we're really interested in. Change that not just for a 30-minute shot on TV, but really a change that's going to be long lasting.
Agree. Before we leave, I would like to ask the city manager, I know we've had a lot of discussions, and not a lot of discussion, but we've had a lot of issues with protesting and what we've seen going on around the country. We saw what happened in Raleigh the other night with the defacing of the monuments there on the Capitol grounds and people pulling them down. And, obviously we have put a curfew around those monuments and we're protecting them 24/7 with policing, but it has also become to some degree, a public safety issue for this community and for this city. And I would ask, because according to what our city attorney has shared with me in the law that was passed in 2015, we just can't arbitrarily take these down and move them to a museum or move them to a mausoleum or even move them to a graveyard. There's a protocol that we have to abide by, and the protocol that I would ask our manager to start looking at is the fact that this is a public safety issue first and foremost. We have obviously people that have passions on both sides. These monuments mean different things to different folks. Our issue is to protect the historic integrity of the monument, but also to protect the people that are protesting there, that are getting out there in the street. So on a temporary basis, I would ask that the manager formalize a plan as soon as possible to move those monuments and get back to us as soon as possible with that. That has been a concern, and obviously it's become unattainable for us, but we do not want to see them destroyed. We don't want to see people arrested. We don't want to see people hurt. And it's a public safety issue first and foremost. And that's what I would ask for you to look at, Mr. Manager. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Absolutely, and we're not going to break the law. And as I've said, and me and Kevin had a meeting last night. A lot of people were coming to us and asking us, we're hiding behind the law. We don't have the luxury of picking which laws we enforce. When we take an oath of office, all of us, we take the oath to protect and uphold the laws of the state and of the United States. And this is a state law, and we're going to adhere to that law. That's why we've had many consultations with our city attorney to make sure that whatever we do it right. But there's a lot of people that are concerned about the historic aspect, the historic integrity of those monuments, whatever they're going to be and however they'll be used in what historic content. And we've spent a tremendous amount of resources and time. And I just want to ask you to go ahead and start looking at that for us. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to say thank you to everybody who participated last night in that virtual town hall meeting. For the most part, I think it was a success. I've heard it was a success. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for agreeing so willingly to participate, and definitely to the panelists. And I also would like to congratulate Chief Donnie Williams, and to also say to the citizens that we hear you and we're taking steps to meet you halfway, and even more if we can, within the confines of the law. And so I thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Mr. City Attorney.
Mr. Mayor, if folks could just have it reiterated here at the close of the meeting that this session is being held open until 2 o'clock tomorrow, at which time council has a matter that it intends to take up that came out of that closed session.
So we will not close the meeting.
Indeed.
We will not close this meeting. This meeting will continue open until 2 o'clock tomorrow. So we will recess until 2 o'clock p.m. tomorrow. Thank you.